The Galactic Military Academy had seen many species pass through its halls over the centuries. Tall, graceful Altarians with their crystalline skin, methodical Borrelians who calculated every move, even the fierce Crimson Guard from the volcanic world of Pyrrhos. But never had they encountered anything quite like the human cadet who stood in formation that morning. Drill Sergeant Vex watched the new recruit with growing unease. The human called himself simply Jake, and everything about him seemed wrong, by galactic standards. Where other cadets stood rigid with proper military bearing, this Deathworlder appeared almost relaxed. His breathing was steady and slow, his heart rate barely elevated despite the stress of their first live fire exercise. "Listen up, recruits," Vex barked through his translator, his 4 eyes scanning the mixed species formation. "Today you face the Crucible. Real plasma rounds, live explosive charges, and enough hazards to reduce most of you to molecular paste if you make a single mistake." The assembled cadets shifted nervously. A few Yeltonian recruits began the traditional pre-combat meditation ritual. The insectoid klaxons clicked their mandibles in anticipation, but the human just smiled slightly, as if someone had told him a mildly amusing joke. Vex's secondary eyes narrowed. In all his cycles of training recruits, fear was the appropriate response. Fear kept them alive. Fear made them careful. This human's casual attitude could get everyone killed. "Cadet Jake," Vex called out, "you seem unconcerned about facing live ordnance." The human turned those unsettling binocular eyes toward him. "Just looking forward to it, Sergeant. Been a while since I had some real excitement." A collective intake of breath rippled through the alien cadets. Even the battle-hardened Pyros recruit stepped back slightly. Vex felt his gill slits flutter with anxiety. What kind of species considered live fire exercises exciting rather than terrifying? The Crucible stretched across 50 kilometers of harsh terrain. Ancient automated defense systems fired plasma bolts that could vaporize a grown Altarian. Minefields lay scattered between cover points. Aerial drones hunted anything that moved too quickly or stayed exposed too long. Most recruits considered survival alone a victory. As the exercise began, Vex monitored the recruits' progress from the command center. His assistant, Sergeant Knox, pointed out the various vital signs on their displays. "The Yeltonians are maintaining good formation," Knox reported. "Heart rates elevated but stable. The klaxons are using their natural agility well. And the Pyrrhos recruit is... Wait." Knox's tentacles curled in confusion as he stared at one particular readout. "Sergeant, the human's biometrics are all wrong." Vex leaned over to examine Jake's readings. The human was moving through the most dangerous section of the course, where 3 automated turrets created overlapping fields of fire. Plasma bolts screamed past him as he darted between cover points. His heart rate should have been through the roof. His stress hormones should have been spiking. Instead, the readings showed something impossible. Jake was having fun. "This cannot be accurate," Vex muttered, checking the sensors twice. But the data was clear. The human's brain chemistry showed elevated levels of compounds associated with enjoyment and excitement, not fear and survival stress. On the field, Jake had encountered his first real challenge. A malfunctioning mine had created an unstable energy field between him and the next checkpoint. Other species would have found an alternate route or called for support. Instead, Jake studied the crackling barrier for exactly 30 seconds, then did something that made every drill sergeant in the command center freeze. He laughed, not a nervous laugh or a stress response, a genuine delighted chuckle as if he had just solved a particularly entertaining puzzle. "He is broken," whispered Sergeant Knox. "His survival instincts are completely absent." But Jake was not broken. As Vex watched in growing horror and fascination, the human executed a perfect combat roll through a gap in the energy field that existed for less than 2 seconds. He emerged on the other side, brushed dust off his uniform, and continued forward as if he had just performed a routine training drill. "How did he calculate that timing?" Knox asked, reviewing the footage. The pattern had no discernible rhythm. Vex said nothing, but he was beginning to understand something terrifying about humans. They did not calculate, they adapted. Where other species needed predictable patterns and careful analysis, Humans thrived on chaos and uncertainty. The revelation became complete when Jake reached the final obstacle, a section where recruits had to traverse an open area, while automated systems fired live rounds designed to miss by increasingly narrow margins. It was meant to test nerve and precision under pressure. Jake sprinted into the killing field and immediately began weaving unpredictably between the plasma bolts. But instead of the desperate, careful movements other species employed, he moved with something that looked disturbingly like joy. He was playing with the automated systems, treating deadly accurate fire as nothing more than an elaborate game. When a bolt passed close enough to singe his uniform, Jake actually grinned and changed direction toward the next turret, as if seeking more dangerous angles. "He is hunting the guns," Knox observed with dawning horror. "He is not trying to avoid them. He is engaging them." Vex watched the human complete the course in record time, finishing with a casual wave toward the command center cameras. When Jake jogged up to the extraction point, he was barely breathing hard and wore the expression of someone who had just enjoyed a pleasant morning run. "How was that, Sergeant?" Jake asked cheerfully. "When do we get to try the advanced course?" Vex stared at this Deathworlder cadet who had just treated their most dangerous training exercise as entertainment. He thought about all the species in the galaxy who had joined their military alliance. Cautious species who valued safety and predictability, logical species who calculated risks and benefits, and now humans who apparently considered mortal danger to be recreational activity. For the first time in his long career, drill sergeant, Vex wondered if the galaxy was truly ready for what Earth had to offer. The human smiled at him expectantly, clearly hoping for even greater challenges ahead. Vex's gill slits fluttered again. They were all in serious trouble.